Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Monday, December the 4th, 2023. So there has been a bit of a furore about the book Endgame, about the British royal family. And in this video, I want to look at the horoscope of the author of this book, Omid Scobie. Now, a couple of days ago, I said that I didn't know his date of birth, but now that date of birth has been revealed as far as I can see. His Wikipedia page mentions it, Astro Theme has it, and it is apparently July the 4th, 1981. We don't know his time of birth, but apparently he was born in Wales. So let me just give you some background by looking at an article in The Guardian published a few days ago. So this article was published on November the 30th, and it's titled Royals and Race, Inquiry Underway into Naming of Charles and Catherine in New Book. A royal author has said an investigation is underway into how the Dutch version of his new book named two senior members of the British royal family alleged to have discussed the skin colour of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's unborn son. In an edition that has now been withdrawn from bookshelves, King Charles and the Princess of Wales were named as taking part in conversations about Prince Archie before his birth, according to allegations in the book that have been broadcast on TV programmes in the UK and the Netherlands. The book claims conversations about Archie related to how it opened up discussions about whether there was unconscious bias in the royal family. Now, it does say at the end of the article, it says, speaking to the Dutch TV show RTL Boulevard, Scobie said, "If there are translation errors, I'm sure the publishers will have it under control. I wrote and edited the English version. There has never been a version that I've produced that has names in it." So, there is a question that how did the names of Prince Charles and the Princess of Wales get into the Dutch version? So, that's sort of background, a bit of background about the story. So later in the video, I will be talking about Omid Scobie and his horoscope. But before I do that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Monday, December the 4th, 2023. So let's see what's going on today. This chart, as always, set for today, Monday, noon, New York. These are the positions of the planets. You will notice that the moon is in Virgo. The moon went into Virgo this morning, Monday morning, at 3:50 a.m. In London. It actually went into Virgo last night, Sunday evening, in the Americas. Moon goes into Virgo 4:50 a.m. if you're in for example, Berlin, Paris, Western Europe. 6:50 a.m. in Moscow. If you're in Asia, for example, if you're in Manila, it's 11:50 a.m. If you're in Sydney, Australia, it's 2:50 p.m. So yeah, if you're in Europe and Asia, certainly for most of the day, the moon is going to be in Virgo. If you're in Sydney, Australia, if you're in New Zealand, then it'll be in the afternoon that the moon moves into Virgo. So the moment the moon moves into Virgo, it makes an opposition aspect to Saturn. You can see this, the moon's opposition Saturn. So particularly at the beginning of the day, there could be a few issues with this. The moon in Virgo is all about, is all about details, and it hits an opposition of Saturn. And some of us might feel that we just can't move because of the details. We have to consider the details. We have to make sure everything is properly organized. And this might actually prevent us from making progress in the short term. Or, we might be trying very hard to sort out our lives, moon in Virgo, but then Saturn in Pisces may represent something quite chaotic that prevents us from getting anything done. But I think this is quite a short-term thing. And probably what's more important today is that we actually have a Grand Trine in Earth signs. So the moment the moon moves away from this opposition of Saturn, there's a moon in Virgo, it makes a trine to Mercury. That's an 120-degree aspect. And it makes a trine to Jupiter. And Mercury is already applying to a trine of Jupiter. The exact trine between Mercury and Jupiter happens in a few days' time, later in the week. But because of a moon, we do have a Grand Trine in Earth signs. Moon in Virgo, Mercury in Capricorn, and Jupiter in Taurus. So this Grand Trine in Earth signs makes it easy for us, or relatively easy, for us to make things happen in the material world. So I don't know, if we're trying to make money and we're very down to earth about it, and we just keep going, we keep ploughing on, we might find that things come together relatively easily. Likewise, if we're trying to sort anything out in a material way, once we've got past that moon opposition Saturn, there might be like an initial problem, an initial brick wall, but once we've got over that hurdle, things can really move quickly, and we can start really organizing our lives and our environment in terms of work, business, career. Yeah, we can make things happen, and just don't be put off by that first obstacle. Yeah, at first it is hard, but just don't give up. Just keep pushing, and then the wall will come down, and yeah, all of us can be very successful in a material sense. Now, another thing going on today is that Venus is changing sign. So I did a video a day or two ago where I talked about this week in general, and I mentioned that at the beginning of the week, Venus moves from Libra to Scorpio, and today is the day Venus moves into Scorpio. It happens at 6:51 p.m. in London. So if you're in the Americas, that's going to be sort of late morning, early afternoon, depending on where you are. So in the Americas, certainly last half of the day, you'll have Venus in Scorpio. Western Europe, it's going to be more of an evening thing. Asia, Australia, well, really, it's going to be something you're going to experience tomorrow, Tuesday. But Venus moving into Scorpio, yeah, it's a big change. And Venus moves from being in a very strong position, because Venus rules Libra, to being in a relatively weak position. Venus in Scorpio doesn't really work very well. That's because Venus is in its detriment in Scorpio. I know Scorpio is a water sign, but I think the problem with Scorpio is that it's perhaps too brooding. It sort of hangs on to its feelings too much. And for relationships to work, there's supposed to be a kind of free flow of emotion, and perhaps with Venus in Scorpio, that's not possible, or not quite possible. It can be hard work. Also, you've got the danger of emotion getting stuck. When you've got emotion getting stuck, people don't just brood, they can get jealous, they can get obsessive. So that can be a problem with Venus in Scorpio. Having said that, the moment Venus moves into Scorpio, it makes a trine aspect with Saturn. And so, for many of us, we can kind of stabilize the situation. Saturn is about discipline and stability. So we can make sure that sort of feelings don't get out of control. So if we want to control the emotional temperature, then maybe that Venus in Scorpio trine Saturn can be quite useful. So that's the overall planetary picture for today, Monday, December the 4th, 2023. And what I want to do now is do my usual star sign forecasts for the 12 signs. So here we go. Here are my forecasts for today, which is Monday, December the 4th, 2023. Aries. It's a day for taking it easy, or at least for not going beyond the bounds of your knowledge and experience. You might think that you can take the risk, but with the moon in Virgo, square Mars, there is a higher chance than average of coming unstuck. Be extra careful when taking physical exercise. Taurus. Venus, your ruler, is moving from Libra to Scorpio. In some respects, your position is going to weaken. You'll have to spend more time worrying about other people, and you yourself might find it more difficult than usual to express your feelings. Yet, life will have a new intensity, and amongst the chaos, you have the chance of finding true meaning. Gemini. It's easy to get annoyed. Other people are going to want attention in a way that's aggravating, and you might find it difficult to get peace and quiet, especially when dealing with your family. The best way to deal with the situation is probably to be clear about your likes and dislikes at the first opportunity. Cancer. Today, you're attentive to detail, and you feel that if you notice something, you should be open and upfront about it. This may be true, but you do have to be careful. The moon is making a square aspect to Mars, so it's easy to make people angry and upset. So use your Cancerian sensitivity to moderate your speech. Leo. You want to enjoy yourself, but it's difficult to relax. You're thinking about the things that could go wrong, and money matters are never going to be far from your mind. So it's a time when you need to get the balance right. Enjoy yourself within clear limits and give consideration to how much everything costs. But the best things in life are free. Virgo. Whether it's a good or a bad day rather depends on where you focus your attention. If you focus on yourself and the things you enjoy, then everything should be fine. But if you actively engage with other people and their problems, then things could get difficult. If you see a potentially stressful situation, then it might be best to walk the other way. Libra. Venus leaves your star sign. It had to happen at some stage, and life may become more emotional. After all, the next sign on from Libra is Scorpio. You would rather not engage with the situation, but you probably have to. And it's possible that the financial arena becomes a source of controversy and even argument. Scorpio. You're better able to deal with other people, especially on a one-to-one level. It's because Venus, the planet of relationships, is moving into Scorpio, your star sign. You're going to find that you can really take control of the situation. And, this is because Venus, when it moves into your star sign, it also makes a fortunate trine aspect to Saturn. You can engage your feelings, but also exercise some self-discipline and control. So there's no need for emotional excess. Sagittarius. You want things to happen and you're not in the mood for delay. And overall, your ambitions are burning bright. You don't have to apologize for the way you are. And in terms of dynamic action, you can really make things happen. But if you listen too hard to other people, your effectiveness might suffer. Capricorn. Today, there is a Grand Trine in Earth signs. The moon in Virgo trines Mercury in Capricorn, which trines Jupiter in Taurus, which in turn is trined by the moon in Virgo. Things run smoothly, and from a material perspective, you can set things up nicely for yourself. But for best results, you'll consider new and perhaps unusual ideas. Aquarius. There are things you want to know about, and you're ready to do the research. That's fine, but perhaps you should avoid asking too many questions, at least in a public sense. Some people are touchy and they don't want to reveal the truth. A trine aspect between Venus and Saturn suggests new and important relationships. Pisces. You have to take into account other people's acute awareness of detail. So it's not a day for taking shortcuts and for indulging in sloppy behaviour. While you might not think that perfection is necessary, you do need to err on the side of caution. The grandest of plans can be ruined by a moment of lost concentration. Okay, so I'm now going to switch to the I Ching, and I ask the question, what is Monday going to be like for those watching this video? And the first hexagram I got was hexagram 29, the abysmal. It kind of sounds bad, doesn't it? And the symbolism of the hexagram, we've got these two repeated trigrams. Remember, a hexagram has 6 horizontal lines, and it's composed of 2 trigrams, each trigram having 3 lines. And so the top trigram and the bottom trigram talk about water, and in particular, water in the sense of the abyss. So, the abyss could be like a pit that we might fall into. So this is suggestive of a dangerous situation. We could easily make a big mistake and fall into a pit. Now, I'm hoping that doesn't literally mean that we fall into a pit. But in our various activities, I think we do have to be careful. And there are 2 moving lines, and the bottom line moves, and that kind of gives us an indication about where some of the danger might be. So maybe we're involved in a task that we know is dangerous, we know is high risk, but we've done it so many times before that it just seems a bit routine. I suppose anyone like people who, climb trees or steeplejacks. I don't know whether you have steeplejacks in America, but I'm not quite sure what they do. Do they climb up church steeples? People doing stuff that's dangerous, but they do it so often that it doesn't seem dangerous anymore. There's this sort of illusion that everything is fine. And so what is that activity that you do all the time, but is kind of high risk, but you just get used to it? Even driving. I suppose a lot of people drive, and driving is a dangerous activity. And one mistake, and you're dead or someone else is dead. It's that kind of activity. I'm kind of amazed that people drive all the time. It is such a dangerous activity. But yeah, one mistake and everything's gone. So any activity that you do, which where you're just being complacent. Complacency. As soon as you're complacent, you think, "Oh, this is fine," then you're in real trouble. And that's not just about physical danger. It's about danger, for example, to do with other people. We might deal with people who are, I won't say dangerous, but who may be very sensitive. They could fly off the handle if we say the wrong thing. We might say, "Oh yeah, we can handle this. I can handle this person. I've handled them. I know they're a bit scary, but I always managed to handle them in the past, so it should be okay in the future." And then suddenly it's not okay. I don't know. What if you're a criminal, and what if you keep breaking the law? What if you're watching this and you're used to breaking the law, and it seems fine because you've broken the law so many times, you never got caught, and then this is the time it happens. So that's part of the problem with the abysmal, a repeated danger that we have to be careful. The I Ching actually thinks there's a danger of actually falling in the pit here. So but it's not saying it will happen if you're careless, if you're complacent. Then there is a fourth line that moves. This fourth line moves is, I think there is a general awareness at this stage that our situation is dangerous, and I think if we can get past that complacency, I think we're going to be okay the next time we come across this danger. We should be okay. We do understand the problem. So two lines moving, and then this hexagram 29, it does move. It moves to hexagram 58, the joyous. So a really different hexagram. We've still got the repeated trigram, and it's still about water, but it's about a lake. It's about contained water. And so with water, you see this in a more sort of emotional sense. And so if we can avoid the danger in the abyss, if we can not fall into the pit, and if we can survive, perhaps until later in the day, then things should start getting easier. The emotions will start to flow, we'll feel more confident, and people are going to respond much, in a much more constructive way to us. Yet, I called this hexagram 58. I'm calling it, the joyous. I've written the joyous because that is what the Wilhelm translation gives to it. On the other hand, Greg Winkup's translation, he calls it something really different. He calls it standing straight. And he is suggesting that what it's all about is we've got to stand straight. We're dealing with a difficult situation, perhaps going back to the abyss. There are perhaps dangerous tides around, and we've got to stand up straight, because if we don't stand up straight, we could be swept away. So even if we are able to enjoy ourselves, we mustn't lose ourselves. We mustn't sort of lose ourselves in the overall merriment. No, we've got to stand straight, stand up for what we believe in, and not get caught up in other people's chaos. But I think overall 58 is a good hexagram, provided we're mindful. I know that's an overused word, mindful, but I think mindful is about being aware that there is a potential danger, and that we know we have got to we've got to be prepared for it, and yes, we have got to stand up straight. Okay, so that's I Ching, and what I want to do now is look at Omid Scobie's horoscope. I'm also going to compare his chart with Meghan's. I forgot to say that in the introduction, because there's some really interesting stuff going on when you compare those two charts. Okay, so let's look at Omid Scobie's chart. I actually find his chart quite interesting. It's kind of shame we don't have a time of birth for him. So this is his chart. As you can see that he was born on July the 4th, 1981, at noon. Now, I've said Cardiff, Wales. I'm not saying he was born in Cardiff, Wales. I mean, Cardiff is the biggest city in Wales. For all I know, he was born in Swansea or Port Talbot or Abergavenny or Anglesey or wherever. I don't know where he was born in Wales. So I've gone for Cardiff, but it could have been somewhere else. That's his chart set for noon. Let me just fix that because I've got houses. We have no reason to put houses in a chart because we simply we don't know. We don't know what time he was born. So we see he's a Cancerian, July the 4th, and he was born on U.S. Independence Day. People who are born on U.S. Independence Day, can do well in the United States. I think that's what's happened. I think his career has really helped, been helped by his connections with the United States. Of course, he is obviously, as I said, born in Wales. I think one of his parents is. One of his parents, I think, is originally Iranian. I think, so he was. He was born July the 4th, 1981, and he's got Sun in Cancer. Sun in Cancer, Cancer can often be good at writing. I'm not sure why. Ernest Hemingway was a Cancerian. I'm not putting him at the level of Ernest Hemingway, but I suppose Cancerians, they sort of have a sensitivity. You think that Gemini is the planet of writing, but Gemini can just be a little on its own, can just be a little too focused on the facts, and they don't perhaps have the sensitivity. I once tried writing fiction. I cannot write fiction. I'm just completely hopeless at it, being a Gemini. I mean, my fiction, when I've tried to do it, it's just completely unreadable. It's mechanical. It's just doesn't work. Of course, Omid Scobie is not writing fiction, but he is. So he has that sort of, perhaps with that Sun in Cancer, he has a sort of an emotional touch, which helps his books be readable, and perhaps it also helps in terms of how he relates to his human subject matter. Now, he doesn't have any Earth in his chart. That may not be relevant to talking about him as an author, but normally people who don't have any Earth in their chart, maybe at some level he's not particularly grounded, but maybe it actually helps not having any Earth. I mean, I suppose, he spent his career, I think, being a sort of celebrity journalist and all this kind of stuff, that sort of glitz and celebrity is not very grounded, and maybe having no Earth, being able to move from one place to another, maybe it helps him. But he's got a lot of he's got a lot of air in his chart. His Sun in Cancer is actually his only traditional planet in a water sign. Okay, he's got Uranus in Scorpio, but he's got he's got four traditional planets four traditional planets in air signs and two traditional planets in fire signs. So that's a lot of positivity. 6 out of his 7 planets are in positive signs, fire or air. Air. Particularly the Gemini. Mercury and Mars in Gemini. They love the gossip. They love what's going on. It depends. Not all Geminis like gossip. I don't think I'm particularly interested in gossip, particularly celebrity gossip. But I think there is an aspect of some Geminis. They just like all the gossip. They like all the talking, finding out what's happening. And that's probably in his case. Happening in his case, and they can sort of move around, switch from subject to subject, not necessarily always get too deeply into things. But I think for what he's doing as a celebrity journalist, I think he was specializing in the royal family. Having that Gemini is extremely useful. But there is a hard edge to that because he's got a Mercury-Mars conjunction in Gemini. Now, I know that Mercury-Mars conjunction is quite wide, 6 degrees, but still, he's got Mercury and Mars in Gemini in the same sign. Mercury-Mars it can be quite attacking. Mercury is how you communicate. Whether it's through words, verbally, whatever, you put Mercury conjunct Mars, it can be very critical. It can be attacking. And then look at Neptune. Neptune is at 22 Sagittarius. So that means that Neptune is on the Mercury-Mars midpoint. Now, Mercury, you could say that Neptune is about the glitz and the bright lights and the glamour and the stuff that may be real, maybe not real, and him putting his Mercury-Mars into that is something that he can really do. There's a sort of confusion there, which maybe he quite enjoys, perhaps, and sort of creating these images in his books. Obviously, I've never read any of his books. I have no plans on reading any of his books. But so, with Neptune on his Mercury-Mars midpoint, you can imagine what imagery he is able to create. And I was looking at the description of Neptune on the Mercury-Mars midpoint, as described by Witter and described by Ebertin, and there's a sort of an implication here that through your words you can potentially destroy things, bring things down, undermine things. So Mercury-Mars, if that's his, those are his. That's his book, Endgame. He did write a book before that, but perhaps they're able to subtly undermine some of the things he's writing about. For example, maybe the royal family, or maybe particular members of a royal family. Maybe that's the impact of his writing. We shouldn't forget that he has got quite a lot of stuff in Leo. He's got North Node in Leo, Venus in Leo, Moon in Leo, Moon and Venus in Leo. I suppose Venus in Leo, at the very least, I suspect that suggests he's quite proud of what he's doing. He certainly sort of believes in himself. That gives him a lot of focus. He's quite possibly quite concerned about his appearance. That can often be a Leo thing. And getting things right is important, and probably his public image is going to be quite important to him. Now, from a generational perspective, you will notice that he's got a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Now, Jupiter-Saturn in Libra. Saturn is really strong in Libra. It's exalted in Libra, and particularly with the conjunction to Jupiter. And the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in the early 80s, there was this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. People born under this, Kim Kardashian had this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Libra. I think Paris Hilton, these people who when they hit their sort of 20s, then you started to get the era of reality TV around 2000 after that, so they were able to benefit from that. So he is of that generation. And of course, another person who had the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction was Meghan. So that's a kind of generation that was born around 1981 with these very strong Saturn. Your Saturn in Libra is all about it's all about that balance between yourself and the public and how you manage it. And the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction generation, in many cases, are really able to manage it extremely well. And it fits that he's talking. That Meghan Markle has become so important for him because she was born very close to him. In fact, I think she's about a month older than him, and I will shortly be looking at her at his and her horoscopes. But one thing I wanted to point out is that you will see July the 4th, 1981, that Omid Scobie was born quite soon after a new moon. You see, he's got his sun at 12 Cancer and his moon at 17 Libra. So why don't we set up a chart for the new moon? The new moon that took place just before he was born. I'm starting to do this more often now when I've got, particularly with celebrities and people who are famous, looking at the prenatal lunation. I think it's important. I think it might tell us a lot, especially when we don't have a time of birth. We haven't got a clue what Omid Scobie is. At least I haven't got a clue what his ascendant is. So let's look at his lunation before he was born. So there was a new moon, July the 1st, 1981. And I said it for Cardiff, Wales. As I said, I don't know where he was born in Wales. Maybe it should have been Swansea or Port Talbot or somewhere else. I don't know. So I've set that for Cardiff. So that's a new moon just before he was born. Now, July the 1st. Who had their 20th birthday on July the 1st? Victoria Nuland, she had her 20th birthday on July the 1st, but, Victoria Nuland, she's the one that helped orchestrate the America's, that coup in Ukraine in 2020. Well, it was not a coup, but the the Maidan revolution in the Ukraine. Victoria Nuland has real issues with Russia. But anyway, I don't actually want to talk about Victoria Nuland. I don't think Victoria Nuland is relevant. It's the one who was born on the same day as Victoria Nuland. Yeah, that's Princess Diana. Princess Diana was born July the 1st, 1961. So this was he had his lunation was Diana's 20th birthday, and Diana was married to Charles later in that month, July the 29th. So, he was born into a world which was, or at least into a country which was very excited about the royal wedding. And the fact that he was born on Diana's birthday, not born on Diana's birthday, but his prenatal new moon, was on her 20th birthday. It's also her solar return. I kind of think that's sort of important. It gives him a connection with the royal family, and certainly it's been an important part of his career. And so I'm wondering, can we actually start to look at that chart as almost like a natal chart? There's his Mercury-Mars conjunction. It's quite wide, but Mercury-Mars was exactly on the 7th house cusp for that new moon on July the 1st. So that sort of highlights his Mercury-Mars, is his journalistic skill, the fact that he can be quite aggressive in his writing. And also, Pluto was on the midheaven at the time of this new moon. And so I suppose the new moon doesn't represent the head of state, it represents a king, Pluto, and he can sort of internalize this drama. So, I mean, the way you see this new moon is you imagine, he is born on July the 4th, but there was a kind of, in that prenatal new moon, there's kind of an imprinting. So somehow just before he was born, he experienced the power of this new moon. Now, okay, I understand a lot of babies born would have experienced the power of his full moon, but it was him who became this journalist, who became such an important link, who was able to develop this important link with Meghan and Harry. So yeah, I think it's worth looking at this new moon. Not least because it happened it was Diana's 20th birthday, and it was just before the royal wedding. Now, which leads me to the final thing I want to consider. And that is the relationship between Omid Scobie and Meghan Markle. As I understand it, they have quite a good relationship. I mean, he's written in terms of his past book, I think it was sort of sympathetic to her. I mean, I don't know about the details about how it's written, but I think there was contact between them. So how does Omid Scobie get on with Meghan Markle, or perhaps more to the case, how does Meghan Markle get on with him? So here's Meghan's chart. You can see she was born on August the 4th, 1981. Now, unlike Scobie, we have a time of birth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a oops, wrong one. Right, so there is Meghan Markle's chart in the middle, and Meghan Markle is on the inside, and Omid Scobie is on the outside. Now, because they were only born a month apart, some of the planets are going to be exactly on each other, particularly the outer planets. So you can see that they both got Uranus at 26 Scorpio, both got Neptune at 22 Sagittarius, both got the South Node at 1 Aquarius, both got Pluto at 21 Libra. So these two, they are really of the same generation. All those generational planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, are really lined up with each other. So that must help them relate to each other. There's no generational conflict there. So, there is, that's Meghan's moon at 4 Libra. So his Jupiter is at 2 Libra. So the way he expresses that, his sort of expansiveness and his vision, or that aligns with the way Meghan feels, and so perhaps she likes him. That helps, doesn't it? Also, look at there's Meghan's Mercury. Meghan's Mercury is at 536 Leo, and at noon his Venus was at 537 Leo. So that's a wonderful contact. These two, I believe, can really communicate extremely well. Venus is a planet of relationships, and he's got Venus in Leo, and Venus in Leo is a female planet. So Omid Scobie, his projection of Venus, he knows how to treat Meghan with the respect that she feels she deserves, and I think that feeds into her Mercury. So some really quite amazing contacts there, which kind of are obvious because they're born so close together. But the contact I thought was perhaps really important is Sun Mars. So there is Meghan's Mars, 1127 Cancer, and there is his Sun, 1213 Cancer. So his Sun is exactly on Meghan's Mars. Now, at first you might think, hold on, that might be a problem, because if his Sun is on her Mars, there might be some friction. But that Mars in her chart is the male planet. I always saw that Mars in Cancer, for her as representing Harry. Mars is not actually very well placed in Cancer. It's in its fall. So you could say that, Harry is, I don't know, he strikes me as being pretty weak, at least compared to her. But he's also got lots of chips on his shoulder. Mars in Cancer, that would make sense. And he's also sort of, the Mars is a symbol of a universal symbol of a soldier, and of course Harry is the soldier. So Mars would fit Meghan's Mars. Harry would fit that Mars in Cancer. So my first impulse was to think, okay, let's regard that Mars in Cancer as just Harry and something projectable. But let's have a think about Mars in another way. What if that Mars is not getting projected? What if that Mars represents Meghan's anger, her annoyance, maybe the chips on her shoulders? And it's in the 12th house. And I'm thinking that there might be a sense of it being quite vindictive. Mars in the 12th house in Cancer. Wanting to undermine people, perhaps wanting revenge for particular slights, wanting to, hurt people perhaps who have done her damage. And that's her Mars in the 12th house. And then Omid Scobie comes along and his Sun is on her Mars. And then she's perhaps thinking, finally, this is a person that can perhaps help her do the damage she wants to cause to the royal family, to whatever, whether it's to Charles or to well, particularly maybe to Kate. And so that may be how it's working. Maybe Harry is perhaps not strong enough to do the damage that she wants to cause. Okay, he's Harry, all his court cases, but I don't think Harry's court cases are really helping a cause, are they? I mean, I think that these court cases are looking a little out of place. And there are just too many of them. So Harry's that's not really working out. But here comes Omid Scobie, who can write books. He knows how to write books well. And so maybe that Sun in Cancer hitting her Mars in Cancer, she may see him as the instrument, perhaps for the way she is going to get back at the royal family, who she perceives as having slighted her, or whatever. Anyway, so that is Omid Scobie's chart, and that is how I think how Omid Scobie is relating to Meghan, and I do think that there's plenty of scope for them relating well to each other. I was actually going to talk about the Princess of Wales, Kate, today, but then I saw that we had Omid Scobie's birthday. I thought, well, let's look at Omid Scobie's chart first, and I might talk about Kate tomorrow. But yeah, that's Omid Scobie's chart. I think I've got his date right. Wikipedia says he was born on the 4th of July, 1981. We can't be 100% sure that it's the 4th of July, 1981. Given all this confusion about what day he was born, maybe there'll be more confusion, but for the moment I'm going to go with 4th of July 1981. Okay, so yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you found that interesting, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.